thank you all for coming this evening. I'd like to welcome you all. My name is David Mitchell. I'm the president of the Public Policy Forum, and I want to welcome you to our coming out party for the Peter Lougheed Awards for Leadership and Innovation in Public Policy. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who's here tonight. I can't name you all, obviously, but let me say this. A special welcome to elected representatives, former elected representatives, leaders of the public service from Ottawa and from Edmonton. I'd like to also extend a welcome to business leaders, leaders of business associations, voluntary groups, leaders of the academic community. This is truly an impressive gathering this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all here to the inaugural Public Policy Forum Western Dinner and the first ever presentation of the Peter Lougheed Awards. I can tell you we're very excited about this and a little bit embarrassed as well because we have to turn away so many people from this sold out dinner. It's been sold out for several weeks, and thank you all for your support. The Public Policy Forum actually has very deep roots here in Calgary. In fact, we convened a meeting here in 1987 where we brought together a bunch of hard-baked oil patch CEOs with about a dozen senior public servants, deputy ministers from Ottawa, who flew out here for the day, to talk about the inner workings of the federal government, how public policy is made, and how business leaders and senior bureaucrats could work together and communicate with each other more effectively. At that time, just think about this for a second, 1987, that was actually a risky venture. The National Energy Program was still hovering in the background. But from all accounts, it was a real eye-opener for both sides of that unlikely group. And they struck a motto in 1987 for the Public Policy Forum that goes like this. Whether you believe in government that is too big or too small, we can all agree it ought to work better. And you know what? We've stuck to that motto for almost 25 years now. And we've built an organization that engages leaders from all quarters of the country, all sectors, all regions, all points on the political spectrum around that very simple premise that government needs to work better. We need to build better governments. We built a big tent. We're almost like the United Way of public policy. If you look at our board at the Public Policy Forum, you'll see, for instance, the CEO of General Electric Canada and the chief economist of the Canadian Auto Workers Union sitting side by side. If you look at our members, you'll find the Conservative government of Alberta and the NDP government of Nova Scotia helping to support us, along with corporations, universities, voluntary organizations, about 180 other organizations from coast to coast. If you look at our current programs and activities, you'll see that recently, just last week, we hosted a conference in Ottawa looking for practical ways to make Parliament work more effectively. And at that gathering, we had Ed Broadbent providing his thoughts on the matter. So did Monty Solberg and Anne McClellan. We're able to keep this kind of a diverse group pulling together in the same directions because we don't take positions on policy issues themselves. Take a current example, the long gun registry, which was voted on today in Ottawa. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? Well, that's for members of Parliament to decide. But does it really need to be examined from a broad public policy perspective? You bet. So the questions that we might be interested in at the Public Policy Forum is, well, what's the objective of such a registry? Is it cost effective for taxpayers? And how would we measure the success of the registry? That's where we get involved at the Public Policy Forum. That would be fair game for us. There probably are a few places in the world where citizens get together to make policy by a show of hands. But in Canada, it's the people we elect to the government side of the House of Commons or to provincial legislatures who make public policy choices on our behalf. But ministers, premiers, and prime ministers don't make these choices on their own. Instead, they count on public servants to collect the information and do the analysis to come up with the best options and the best ways for the governments to implement policies placed before voters. And when they decide on a course of action, they turn again to the public service and they say, make it so. Make it so. That's why our public sector ought to be well informed and well managed, so the elected government can do what it sets out to do as effectively as possible. This isn't rocket science, but there are lots of people, including political leaders themselves today, who haven't always given that much thought to this very fundamental relationship between politicians and public servants. Fortunately, however, there have always been a few who do. Peter Lougheed, for example. He certainly understood that essential relationship. And so did his counterpart in Saskatchewan, Alan Blakeney. And I mention this because they had very different ideas about what the role of government is and what it ought to do. But they both took public sector management very seriously. And what did it get them? Well, Peter got 14 years in the Premier's chair in Edmonton, and Alan, he got 12 years in the Premier's chair in Regina. And both were subsequently honored by the Public Policy Forum, I'm pleased to say. But of course, there are many, many other factors that come into play. But the capacity to effectively translate political vision into policies and programs that voters will support give any government, right, left, or center, a leg up on the opposition. In other words, good government makes good politics. Canada's Public Policy Forum advances a recipe for good government in three simple ways. First, we provide a trusted, neutral meeting place where people can talk about policy issues and get a better understanding of competing views. Good policy starts with ideas that get fleshed out through informed, respectful dialogue and debate where everyone gets to be heard. Second, through our research, publications, conferences, and consulting work, we're an advocate for better management in the public sector. We seek to help organizations deliver better value to taxpayers, and we bring a lot of knowledge and experience to help them rise to this challenge. And finally, just as we have a Hockey Hall of Fame in Canada and a Business Hall of Fame, we believe that leaders and innovators who make our lives better by making government work better deserve the same kind of recognition as our sports heroes and our captains of industry. And of course, that's what we're doing here this evening with the launch of the Peter Lougheed Awards. We're celebrating success. I want to extend my personal congratulations at the start of this evening to our inaugural Peter Lougheed Award winners, Roger Gibbons, Clay Riddell, Martha Piper, and Ron Hicks. And let me thank you, ladies and gentlemen, all of you, for joining us this evening in this wonderful tribute to them. And now it's my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce you to my boss, my board chair, David Brown, who's going to say a few words. David Brown, please.